mercy. And it's a great way to bring up Mr. Keith Sharp, who is everywhere all the time and putting a finger on what we need to pay attention to. He is the president of Groundwork Atlanta. He is a board member of Proctor Creek Stewardship Council. Mr. Keith Sharp.
Miss Marta Clayton, thank you. That made me remember that I've owned that record 4 times. First on an 8-track tape, and then on a vinyl album, and maybe 20 years ago on a CD, and not very long ago on iTunes. Marvin Gaye. I want to thank Advocacy America, The Green Gathering, Kerry Williams, Al Bartel, Eric Bush, Reverend Durley, and everyone who's invested their time to join together here for a kickoff of Earth Day tomorrow, when we are reminded that environmental issues affect all of us, black, brown, and white, young and old, rich and poor. I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you of a specific issue, a grave injustice that is planned for Proctor Creek and the Chattahoochee River, that we can still influence and create a different outcome. The Chattahoochee Brick property is 75 acres. It's located at the intersection of Proctor Creek and the Chattahoochee River, the mouth of Proctor Creek. It is the intersection of the proposed Emerald Corridor Greenway Trail along Proctor Creek of 7 miles, the intersection with that and Riverwalk Atlanta, the proposed 5-mile greenway along the city's border with the Chattahoochee River. It is the destination. The Chattahoochee Brick property is the destination at the river for those who will travel from the Atlanta Beltline along the Emerald Corridor and Proctor Creek to Riverwalk Atlanta and the Chattahoochee River. The Chattahoochee Brick property has an interesting history of injustice. This was the primary site of the least prison labor work camp system documented in the book Slavery by Another Name by author Douglas Blackman, and the documentary film by the same name, which details the inhumane and unjust treatment of African Americans after the Civil War and well beyond the turn of the century. People were thrown into jail on trumped up charges, and then the state of Georgia leased the sweat of their brow to companies like the Chattahoochee Brick Company, who manufactured 200,000 bricks a day to rebuild Atlanta and much of Georgia. They were treated inhumanely. Anecdotally, we have learned that people who died in these labor camps were cremated, thrown into the kilns, and burned with the bricks that we're making. Later in time, they were buried there on the site, and there are African American graves on this site that are not marked. This property should be a spectacular destination site on the Chattahoochee River. which was recently, only 2 weeks ago, named the most endangered river in America. Community engagement and detailed visioning process will determine the actual programming of the site. But examples of what could be there include a memorial to these people who were inhumanely treated. It could include recreation amenities, ball fields, an amphitheater, a nature center, a boat ramp, boat docks, a boardwalk, greenway trails with the Emerald Corridor along Proctor Creek, and Riverwalk Atlanta along the Chattahoochee River. And literally a spaghetti junction of trails with connections to the Atlanta Beltline and the Silver Comet Trail. The Lincoln Energy Services Company is proposing to build a new rail tanker terminal to accommodate 90 rail tanker cars, storage tanks, and tanker truck facilities to receive and distribute ethanol, biodiesel, butane, and other oil products. They will double the amount of tanker truck traffic on Bolton Road. We need to come together as a community and as a city, as a region, and as a state to protect the Chattahoochee River from new industrial development. For too long, the Chattahoochee River has been the backside of Atlanta, where industry has polluted the river. Mr. Bartell mentioned consent decrees. It was 20 years ago, slightly more, that the Chattahoochee River Keeper sued the city of Atlanta for discharging raw sewer into the river consistently, forcing the city to invest $4 billion with a B in the aging infrastructure to correct that injustice, that environmental injustice. Today, that section of the river is greatly improved. We have a little ways to go with the uses along the river. We require that our elected officials, our business community, our nonprofit companies, and the philanthropic resources should acquire the Chattahoochee Brick property by any means necessary, including eminent domain. If there was ever a use for eminent domain that was appropriate, this is it. We must remediate the environmental contamination that is there, preserve the history, and create a spectacular new regional resource on the Chattahoochee River. Thank you very much.